As the name suggests, Elder Sign takes place in the grim and weird mythos created by H.P. Lovecraft, tasking players to seal away one of the Ancient Ones of lore before they awaken and torment your world. Elder Sign is $35 retail, but can be found as an app for $6. When you open Elder Sign, you'll find 80 tarot-sized cards, 76 small cards, a wide plethora of tokens and markers, 8 custom dice, an entrance card, a cardboard clock, and a rulebook. All the cards feel great to handle and are clearly high quality. Unfortunately, the art and flavor text are largely wasted on this game due to how little they contribute. The tokens are distinct and designate the necessary information well, although it can be easy to drop or misplace them due to how many there are. The dice look and feel great, with the symbols being engraved clearly and having a slightly chunky feel to them, making them a joy to roll. The clock, which is used to keep track of turns, can be hard to use, with the clock hands feeling stubborn when you try to turn them, and the clock sitting on a raised bump, causing it to spin easily when you attempt to use it. The rulebook is long-winded and difficult to sort through. This is a fairly easy game to learn if you have someone to explain it, but it can feel difficult and roundabout to understand when using the rulebook, requiring multiple read-throughs. While the insert is predictably terrible, the box is fairly thin, although it would have been nice to have a smaller box to use. In Elder Sign, each player gets a unique investigator, each with their own abilities, starting items, and differing health and sanity caps. Similarly, each game, the villain you face is unique, with their own abilities and prerequisites to defeating them. Every midnight, players reveal a Mythos card, which generally causes players to take an immediate penalty and suffer through a long-term penalty that takes place that round, with a round lasting 4 turns. On a player's turn, they can either return to the entrance card or attempt one of the trials the game presents. When attempting a trial, players take all the green dice and roll, attempting to complete one of the sections of the card. If a player succeeds, they may place all appropriate die faces to that section and roll again to try to complete the others. If they fail, players must discard one of the dice before rolling again. Players can focus one of the dice, meaning they save one die with the rolled face still showing. If any other players are present at your location, they can also focus a die for you. Different trials may present extra obstacles, such as preventing you from rolling certain dice, forcing you to complete tasks in a specific order, activating negative effects if you fail certain rolls, or causing more mischief when midnight strikes. If you succeed in completing a trial, your investigator will be rewarded with a plethora of useful things, depending on the trial in question. Common and unique items allow investigators to roll red and yellow dice temporarily, or defeat monsters more easily. Spell cards allow players to lock dice in place between rounds, or heal an investigator. Ally cards provide passive buffs that can help you on your adventure. Clue tokens enable players to make additional rerolls when used. Portals to other realms allow you more options when choosing a trial to face. But the biggest and most useful reward is Elder Signs, the tools used to shut away the Ancient One you are battling that game. If you fail a trial, bad things can quickly befall you, with monsters being summoned, health and sanity being drained, items being lost, and doom tokens working to awaken the Ancient One. When you successfully defeat monsters in trials, your investigator keeps them as trophies, which can be spent at the entrance card for a variety of helpful things, such as additional items or to heal yourself. If an investigator dies by running out of either stat, they are devoured by the Ancient One, losing all their items and adding 1 doom token to the doom track. Then, that player draws a new investigator and continues the adventure with that character's starting items and stats. Play continues until either the Ancient One awakens and devours everyone, or until enough Elder Signs are collected to seal it away. Players can fight off the Ancient One if it awakens, but this is very unlikely. Playtime can vary dramatically depending on the Ancient One that you're facing, how many players are participating, and the trials faced, but generally games last between 45 and 90 minutes. A lot of people tend to boil down this game to Cthulhu-themed Yahtzee, and that's not an entirely incorrect comparison, but I think that kind of puts it in a bad light, whereas Elder Sign, I think, benefits from that comparison. There are a lot of simple ideas to pick up from this game, but that doesn't make it unenjoyable to play it. You're trying to complete certain tasks on these cards, and using your resources in a smart manner when facing these different scenarios and threats, and prioritizing some trials over others, I think is a very engaging and exciting goal to be placed in front of you when playing this kind of game. And the dice rolling aspect of it really adds a little bit of that fear or horror aspect to this game. It's not a traditional, scared kind of feeling, but it's more the risk of rolling the dice and the fear of failing that dice roll that really adds to that idea in a way that I haven't really felt when playing a board game before. There is a lot of stuff that comes in this game which allows for a ton of variability, even without the 5 or so different expansions that are out for this game. You get 16 different investigators to choose from, a ton of trial cards, and I think it's like 8 different ancient ones, if I recall correctly. So there's a huge amount of content to come back to this game for repeatedly. That being said, this game definitely has some strong flaws that it faces. Primarily that the game is fairly themeless. The art and the flavor text and all of that more or less becomes meaningless to this game because the gameplay is roll certain symbols and then place your dice on those symbol spaces. And so any theme that the game is trying to present becomes fairly meaningless because of that. It's the same issue that comes up with ghost stories. The enemies that you face aren't, these big monster ghoul type things that you're, facing off with. They're a collection of colors that you need to roll and nothing else. So that tends to be how these trials feel. Another big issue with this game is that it can be fairly easy to beat. I've had no trouble beating this game on its regular rule set, whether it's by myself or with other players. That being said, you may have to make your own modifications to this game to make it difficult enough for you to find it enjoyable to play. On top of all of this, the box says that this plays 1 to 8 players, and that is a downright lie. This game should not be played with more than 4 players, and even then, this game is a solo game. It has the rules and the mechanics and the ideas that support this being a solo game through and through, and there's no I have a hard time finding enjoyment playing this game with other people. You're not able to actively change or help any of the situations for the most part. The last big thing is that while this game comes with a lot of stuff, it comes with a lot of stuff, and you need to constantly be keeping track of all the little bits and pieces. You gotta go digging for the different clue tokens, the different elder sign tokens, the health tokens when you lose or gain a certain number of sanity or health. You're constantly sorting through these little bits and pieces, and some of it doesn't really add much to the game. The ally cards in particular are hardly offered as a reward of any kind, and more often or not, I find that those ally cards aren't terribly useful. At least maybe the luck of the draw for me has been pretty poor, but generally I found that to be the case. And so the game has a lot of stuff for a lot of variability, but there's a lot of stuff to keep track of, and you can easily lose some of that if you're not careful with the different bits and pieces. I think that this can definitely be remedied if you're playing a solo game, because then you can just have the components, enough of everything for one person. But if you are going to keep this game for multiple people, that is something that's a bit more difficult to keep track of. Ultimately, I can only really recommend this to Cthulhu fans and solo gamers, because this game is by far best in the solo format. And that might beg the question, well, what about the app format? It's a bit cheaper, it's easily accessible, and it's, most apps are made for solo play. This is one of those rare situations where I would highly recommend the physical copy of this game over the app, for a couple of reasons. One, the physical format of the game has so much more in terms of expansions. There are 5 different expansions, all of which add, I think, 8 different investigators, 2 or 3 different ancient ones, a ton of extra cards, and a number of them add new locations for you to traverse and fight through. But the bigger thing for me is the actual act of rolling dice. Dice rolling is so much more satisfying when you're doing it yourself, and having little symbols pop up for you every now and then, it's just not terribly rewarding or interesting from a gameplay perspective. And it can feel like it's almost cheap when you're rolling dice on an app and symbols pop up that you're not looking for. It can feel unfair and unrewarding. When you roll dice and that happens, it can be frustrating, but I also get, I can see that happening, and I get why that's happening. It's a little less painful to roll the dice yourself and have that happen. Now, in terms of the pricing of this game, I think the price for this game is very reasonable, considering how much you get in the box. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. You get a ton of stuff in this box, from the giant tarot cards, the smaller cards, all the little tokens, and the tarot cards are nice. They have a bit of extra space on it for the flavor text and the art, which really doesn't add much to it overall, but the art is very nice to look at. It's by no means bad art, and especially for the investigators, I love the different portraits that are presented for them. This game is definitely, it looks good, it plays well, and you get a lot in it. You don't need an expansion for this game at all. In fact, I kind of almost prefer this game with the base game and maybe 1 or 2 expansions, which I'd like to talk about on another day. But for now, the base game comes with a lot of great stuff, and by itself, I'd say it's definitely worth at least checking out, if not picking up. So, those are my thoughts on Elder Sign. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw here, and be sure to check us out on GamesOnTape.com, over at the Sorry Man I Farted YouTube channel, and yeah, until next week, I'll see y'all later.